You're listening to MMO Noobs. I'm Chris.
I'm Rick.
Hey guys, I'm Keith.
And we're going to talk about New World again. Because it's still January. We're still playing it. Maybe not as much as we were, but we're still playing it. So, what are your thoughts on the game? You know, you've been playing a couple of weeks. What are you thinking about the game still?
Well, it's after a certain point it slows down quite a bit. Like Keith and I are level 43 on our other characters, and it slows down a bit level wise. Lots of traveling.
Oh yeah, lots of traveling.
But I mean, it's still good. I still enjoy it.
Not that traveling's bad, because once you get around and get to the all the fast travel spots, there's not as much, but there's still some, because you still got to get to the travel spots.
Yeah.
What about you, Keith?
Kind of feel the same way. It definitely becomes much more grindy after probably level 30 or so. The first half of the game, you can just kind of follow the quest line and level up, and you're getting to new things. But it gets to the point where you reach a point in the quest line where you have to be a certain level to do the next part, and you find yourself, 5 or sometimes even 10 levels too low. So then you've got to start grinding the town quests and the reputation quests and stuff like that, and they're very repetitive. I still like the game. It's fun to play.
Now, some of the town quests, once you get it, you've already completed it, because go read this book. Well, you've already read it, so all you got to do is complete it. Or it's wanting rawhides, and you already got a stack on you, so you can turn it in. So that helps, but it is repetitive.
But when you've got to do nothing but town quests so that you can get 5 levels or you can, there's still, don't get me wrong, there's still a ton of side quests that are available that you could go do, but the amount of XP that you get with all the running around that you've got to do, I think it's a lot faster just to grind those town quests. And I don't know. Yeah, but I still enjoy the game. It's still fun to play. I like the mechanics within the game and stuff. So it's not bad. It's just slowing down.
Yeah. Now me, I haven't played this much this week because I had my son's birthday, and every time I turned around, his mom wanted to go do more stuff for his birthday, and so I haven't hardly been on. And I've been doing a little bit here and there. I actually got on earlier today and farmed some so I can get my mining up, and it's a good thing because we found some gold veins, and that way I can mine them. But I'm finding myself where I really don't want to do too much on there. Now, I still like the game, but I don't know. It's just without them, I just really don't want to play.
Yeah, and a lot of that, I even when we're together, I hear you saying a lot, like, I don't know what I'm doing. If you don't play it pretty regularly and really, start to figure things out, it can be confusing, and so I understand that.
Yeah. And they apparently picked up a quest I didn't have. I think we ran through the area, and they might have said, "Hey, we're turn this quest in, get this other quest," and I didn't hear. I don't know what happened, but I didn't have the quest. We started doing the quest, and they're like, "Well, can you do this?" I'm like, "No." Yeah, so
it'd be nice if they added some kind of a share option, so that if you do end up at that situation, we could just share the quest with you. But as of right now, that's not available.
Yeah, because it wasn't the turn in the quest to get that quest. It was just picking up the quest. So that would have helped a lot if it had the share option. But oh well. So what have y'all been doing in the game last week? Anything? Or I should say last week and a half. Reaper?
Sorry, say that again. The kid was talking to me.
What have you been doing in game last week and a half?
Last week and a half. I think Keith and I have just been pushing for the next dungeon. We've done the second dungeon, which was, what's it called? Starlight something or other.
Starstone?
That's the one, Starstone.
You haven't done one yet.
Yeah, we gotta level up on these little tunes to 25-ish. Or well, once we get the Azoth staff and destroy 3 corruptions, then we can do the first dungeon.
Cool.
But yeah, no. So we did Starstone, and that's a pretty neat dungeon. It seems confusing, but I think after a time or two of running it, it's pretty straightforward. But there's some neat mechanics to it, like having to actually crawl and stuff underneath these laser beams and hit these magic stones that give us this magic bubble that allows us to stand in the beams while our party members pass through the bubble. It's pretty fun. The boss is a 2-stage boss. Kill him once, you have to kill him again. Yeah, it's cool. I like it.
No, what we did earlier today where we had to go through the gate, I've never actually had to hold down the E button to do something. So that was kind of new.
Yeah, there's a couple things like that where you have to hold it.
So there's still stuff that happens in the game that are new. So Keith, you got anything to add on that?
Well, I've got 3 characters. I've got one that I play when I'm playing by myself. I've got one that I play when it's just me and Reaper on. And then I've got one that I play when all 3 of us are on. So the one that I play by myself, I had to switch my spec up. So if you're playing by yourself, I 100% recommend playing how you want. But I got to a point where, as a caster with the fire staff and the ice gauntlet, I could not defeat this room of enemies that I needed to move into. So I had to have somebody come give me a hand. And right after that, I picked up a hatchet and a sword and shield. And so I've been leveling those up just so that if I do get into a situation where the caster build isn't working, I can switch over to a sword and shield and be able to defend myself a little better. And I'm hoping that that'll help me be able to get through things that I have to do while I'm on my own. Like he said, on the character that we play when we're together, we've just been trying to push levels and get up to the point where we can do the next dungeon. And then when we were playing, just before we started the podcast here, I switched up my healing spec a little bit. At first, when we first started playing, I think I know I said that I was going to drop the ability that made it so that when I shoot you guys, it heals you in favor of a direct heal. But since I've upgraded my life staff enough and I've gotten a good enough weapon, I'm pretty much able to keep everybody alive just by using the AoE heals. So I switched over to a different ability that when I fire an orb into the group, so if you're standing there tanking things and I fire an orb into this group, it's going to damage the enemies. It's going to give you the fortify effect, which will make you take less damage, and it's also going to heal you for some. So I'm going to try using that instead of the direct heal for a little while and see how that works.
Cool. No, on me, all I've really been able to do is kind of get on and play with them a little bit and farm some, and I got my mining up, like I said earlier, where I can do gold, but I'm trying to get it to 50, that way I can, that's when I locate it on the map, right? At 50?
No, 50 is when you can do the fancy rocks.
Okay. I knew 50 was something, and we walked by some that were weird looking, that were floating or whatever, that I can't do yet. But,
Yeah, those are the ones you need 50 for.
yeah.
Yeah, those are the ones that it will, when you mine them, they give you some materials that you can use in your arcana for making potions and stuff like that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, life floats and such.
All right, so y'all ready to move on to the news?
Sure.
All right. Now they had a New World Update 1.2.2. I'll start off. They said that this week's update includes a few fixes for recent issues that popped up, alongside some combat adjustments and fixes. Our development team is continuing working on improving the New World experience, and they thank you for all your patience and reports that you continue to make on the official forums.
So it looks like it was just general bug fixes for the most part. A couple issues being fixed. Players couldn't gain more than 3 levels of aptitude when crafting large quantities of items. So that has been fixed so that you can now, craft a buttload of beds like I did one day and actually get XP for it. What is this? Disabled a short series of work in progress quests, which were missing some aspects. They're actually missing the rewards, mostly. They've been disabled, and they'll be enabled at a later date. So anybody who's completed those quests and didn't get the rewards, they get the XP and the gold that they got from the quest. But when they reinitialize the quest, then they'll be able to redo it and get the actual item reward. And there's 5 quests: Edge of the World, Call Beyond the Void, Stirs the Awakened, Cursed Blade, and Sensu no Ko. I haven't done any of those, so I'm assuming those are much higher leveled quests.
Keith, you remember those?
Well, I was getting ready to say, I think Edge of the World, I think that quest leads up to one of the ones that we were talking about last week, that we couldn't, the one that you can't turn in because the turn-in person isn't there. I think that Edge of the World is the one that leads to that turn-in that we couldn't do.
Okay. You could be right.
Okay.
Like Reaper said, they're mainly just minor things, little tweaks and stuff. Apparently there was I guess you'd call it a little exploit, where players were able to jump to cancel the recovery time for firing their bow, and then therefore be able to rapid fire. So they've fixed that and put a delay on how soon you can jump after your arrow's been released. There was an issue that was causing a permanent disease and slow to be applied when you were in PvP combat.
Ooh. Yeah.
They fixed an issue to players sliding when animation canceling Void Blade heavy attacks. No idea what that means, but they fixed it. There was a quest called Guardian of the Light that was spawning the wrong mob, so they fixed that. And they fixed an issue causing the Surgeon, Pit Lord, Dehi, Baines, and Mordici, the Mortician, to not drop battle trophy materials.
Oh, damn, that would suck.
So that looks like the end of the general bug fixes for this week.
Yeah. Maybe there might have been more, but that's the main ones they probably want to talk about. And then the January team update. Now, I was going to watch it, but it was 37 minutes long. But the gist of it is they discuss the addition of expedition mutators, additional spirit shrines, decreased cost for fast travel, and the role of tuning orbs for expeditions. Some of the design leads discuss the tuning of some named enemies in mutated expeditions. If they are considering mutating lower level expeditions and the patch notes process. And then the video ends with the team answering questions sourced from the community. So you can go to newworld.com and the news and articles, and you can watch that video and check it out.
So I read up a little bit on the mutations, and it sounds like this is going to be equivalent to, if you're familiar with like World of Warcraft, the heroic dungeons, or mythic dungeons, where the way they're doing it in New World is you craft a mutator orb. And when you go to start the dungeon, you're using this special orb that you've created. And when you do, it makes that dungeon a mutated dungeon. Cool. And you're able to do, I think they said, from what I was reading, they were going to have it on a rotating basis. So 1 week you'd be able to do one certain dungeon as a mutated dungeon for that week. And then the next week you'd be able to do a different dungeon as the mutated dungeon. But when you do, it makes it more difficult, and it gives you better rewards.
That's cool.
And I'm sure that stems from, everybody gets to level 60, and then they just have to start grinding out gear and stuff like that. And doing the same dungeons over and over and over I'm sure it's a just mind-melting process. So just adding something new into the game to make it a little more interesting, I think it'll be good.
So, now, for some tips, I was looking up, because I noticed that sometimes when you're hitting enemies, white numbers would pop up while you're hitting it, blue numbers would pop up, yellow numbers would pop up, so I decided to look into it a little bit. Now, apparently the white numbers are just normal hits. You're just hitting them, it's normal, just whatever. Now, but if it's blue, that means it's a reduced damage.
Yeah, and the enemy has some sort of resistance to the damage type you're using.
And then the yellow is increased damage. So if it's like resistance to fire and you're using a fire spell, of course it's going to be reduced. But if they have no resistance at all to fire, it might be increased damage to that. And the same thing goes with slash, thrust, and strike. Sometimes your slash might be less damage to them than what strike or a thrust would be. Like, for instance, ancients, it doesn't really hurt them very well to do slash. It's decreased damage. Your thrust is normal, and if you strike them, it's increased. They got a resistance to fire, so you're doing reduced damage. Ice and nature is normal. Void and lightning are increased, and arcane is just normal. So that was just an example for the ancients. And I don't know if they just gave 5 types of enemies. If there's more, they just gave me an example for those 5.
Oh, that's neat.
Some of the ancients, the best damage type against ancients are lightning, which is a increased of 30 damage, and the worst type of damage is fire, which their reduced damage is 40. So that's another example of that. So you can kind of look it up, and if you're going to be fighting a bunch of ancients or corrupted, you might want to go, if you want to hurry up and kill them all, you can kind of look up this chart I have pulled up, and I might even take a picture of it and put it on the video I'm going to post on YouTube, so you can kind of see it.
Well, that kind of brings up a whole new aspect to the game. Because having to study and remember what enemies are weak to what sort of damage, so you're not, like with me being fire and ice damage, I'm not going into something unprepared, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
where I'm doing minimal damage to stuff that the rest of the party is able to do.
Now, I did hear somebody say that one of the worst parts of the game is if you learn the 4 or 5 types of enemies you're fighting, then you got the game down pat. And they gave 5 examples, so I don't know if he was talking about these 5, and I don't know if it's these set 5 or the whole game or what, but that's what they said.
Yeah.
If you learn those 5 types, you got the game down.
Yeah, there are 5 enemy types in New World. There's Ancients, Angry Earth, Beasts, Corrupted, and Lost.
Okay.
And I'd say probably the easiest way to make sure that you don't end up in a situation where you're fighting like if you've got to go into a quest area and kill a bunch of enemy, you don't want to be in a situation where everything that you've got they're resistant to. So if you get like some of them are resistant to slash damage, some of them are resistant to thrust damage, some of them are resistant to the strike damage, which is like your hammers and things. So you don't want to go in with 2 weapons that both have the same type of damage and put the same enchantment type on them. Like you probably don't want a sword and a rapier. I don't know. I think swords are slash. So you probably don't want a sword and an axe that are both enchanted with fire, because then you may end up in a situation where
you're fighting ancients and they have negative 40 or 40 resistance.
Right, yeah. If you're fighting an ancient and you're using a sword and an axe that are both enchanted with fire, they're resistant to both slash damage and fire damage. So you're gonna spend a lot longer than if you had, a hammer as your second weapon that was enchanted with ice. Then you're getting increased damage based on them not being resistant to everything you've got.
And if you're a tank, you're not going to hold aggro, probably. If you are, if they got a negative thing on slash and fire, you're probably going to get pulled the thread off with the other stuff, so you're not going to be a good tank.
Yeah, if you've got somebody else that's using, like on the Ancients, they can be hit harder by strike damage and lightning. So if you've got somebody using a warhammer that's enchanted with lightning damage, there's a much higher chance
they got a plus 50 on their hit if they do both of those, probably. So yeah, and that's kind of my tip for this week. And like I said, I'm gonna take a screenshot of that and put it on the video. And if you're listening to it, go to YouTube, Heartland PAE, all one word, and that's where the video one is. And if you're watching it, then you already know where to go. So, anybody else got a tip or anything else?
Well, I have to have tips, right? That's kind of my thing.
Yeah, that is your thing. I was waiting for you.
Give her, Keith. I'll think of something, I'm sure.
You'll think of something? All right. Tip number 1 from the tip master is to use your camps. When you're not in a town or around a town, you can set up a camp. And especially do this if you're not close to town. Like if you've gotten a quest and it sends you 2,000 meters outside of town, before you go in to start fighting things, take the time to set up a camp, because that's going to make it so that when you die, you can respawn at that camp that might be, 40 meters from where you're fighting instead of 2,000 meters. And to set up a camp, you have to have 5 green wood and a flint.
Which is
so
easy.
It's usually stuff that you can pick up right around anywhere. Just take the time to set up a camp. I think you press Y, and then
I think so.
And then you hold down E to allocate your resources to build the camp, and then back away, and it'll build you a camp. You can use that camp if you die anywhere within 500 meters. So you don't have to set up a new camp every 500 meters. But if you're going into a situation where you think you may have trouble, or it's a new spot you've never been to and the mobs are about your level, I would recommend setting up a camp so that you don't have to make that trek over and over.
Like, for example, if you're going to go out to farm, you're probably going to be playing by yourself if that's all you're wanting to do is just farm. And if you find a good spot, a good farming spot, you're probably going to want to set up the camp. That way, if something happens, you die, you don't get teleported all the way across the screen back to your town. You have your camp right there, your farming spot. You can spend however long there you want. So, yeah, that's a great idea. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's something that we don't normally think about until we're back at town and we're like, son of a...
Yeah, I found a good spot the other day when I was doing it, and I got teleported back to town because I died, and I just turned it off.
Yeah, you never think about the camp until 2 seconds after you're dead.
Yep.
Did you come up with something, Reaper, or are you just going to leave me to do this all by myself?
I
did.
I was going to say, hey, make sure you're within 500 meters of the camp, and then you said it, so, wow, that got destroyed. So carry on, Keith. I'll think of something.
Another one, this one's probably questionable. So as you move from zone to zone, you get zone reputation, and then you're offered zone rewards that you earn or that apply while you're within that zone. So let's say you're in First Light, which is one of the zones in New World. As you do quests, as you kill things, as you craft things, as you gather things, as you do town quests, you get more and more reputation, and you level up your standing with that zone. And every time you do that, you get some kind of a reward. You get 3 different options each time, and it's always just kind of rotating. So this, like I said, this is probably going to be a hot take, controversial decision. Sometimes you'll get the option to apply an XP boost. I'm going to say, don't do that.
What?
Yeah.
You told me to do it. That's what I've been doing.
Well, I just thought of this, and just bear with me for a second. That's what I've been doing too, so don't feel bad.
Okay.
But once you can't change those decisions once you've got them locked in. There's no resetting that. There's no respecking to make different decisions.
I think I know where
when
you're
you
going.
reach max level,
Yep.
you may have 500% increased XP in these zones, but it's going to be completely worthless. If you're going to play this game and stick with it for the long run, I would say skip the XP boost and put it towards gathering speed or trading reduction cost or things like that, because once you reach max level, you're still going to be able to use all those benefits, but the XP boost is going to be a complete waste. It'll be useless at that point.
Okay. Yeah, I can agree with that. Because I was thinking about that, and I was like, well, I'll probably never get max level, so who cares? But, yeah, I don't know. If
you're just playing the game short term, like I think we're going to plan to, just because we're changing games every month, then it's not as big a deal. But if you get to play in the game and you think you're going to stick with it for the long run, and this is going to be your, like World of Warcraft is for me, that the game that you play all the time, every day for years, then I'd say skip the XP boost and get something that'll help you out at the end of the game.
I do agree with you on that. I do have a question for both of y'all.
Shoot.
What's the end game of this game? What's the big baddie?
No idea. We haven't been there yet.
Is there a big baddie?
I mean,
Next week we'll talk about the big baddie. I'm sure there is.
Well, next week is our last one anyways.
Yeah. I don't know for certain, but if I have to make a guess, I would guess that the big bad guy at the end right now is probably the captain of the ship that you landed with.
Yeah, that's
because
the only thing I can think of is that The one that,
Yeah.
I guess, killed you or whatever at the very beginning of the game. That's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, as you progress, like you end up doing some quests that send you to talk to people and stuff, and they mention him and how he's still around and super dangerous.
Okay, I haven't really looked at some of the quests and talked to them because I'm usually in a hurry because y'all have already done it, so y'all are like picking up the quests and already going because y'all have already read it, so y'all don't know what y'all are doing. And so I haven't really read anything.
We're dragging you through the game.
Yeah, because I tried that at the very beginning, and then y'all be halfway across the map to the next place, and I'm like, okay, I guess I better hurry up and catch up. So I quit reading it. So, all right. So next week we'll talk more about that part, I guess. Does anybody have anything else they want to mention or bring up?
Come on, Reaper, you gotta have one tip.
I don't. It's weird. Usually I pick up on something that you've said, but it just hasn't happened this week.
All right, I'll toss out one more before we call it a week. One of the quests at the beginning of your journey through New World is going to have you buy a house. So houses, I think, typically cost 5,000, 10,000, and 20,000 gold. So you're going to be tempted, and this is what I did, so I'm not immune to this temptation. But you're going to be tempted to buy the $5,000 house because your first house you get a 50% discount. Save your money and buy the expensive house when you get the money. Don't worry about not completing the quest. It's not a big deal. It's not a main story quest or anything. So save up your gold and save $10,000 off of a $20,000 house instead of saving 2,500 gold off of a 5,000 gold house. You're going to save so much more gold by buying the big house with the 50% discount.
It's true. I kind of pushed Keith into buying the cheap house because I found one that we could buy.
Did y'all buy this house together?
Well, it's the same house, but like you go into your own instance when you go into your house.
Okay.
So you're invisible to everybody in your house. Yeah, I pushed him into buying the cheap house just so that we could have a house. Because I hate having a quest sitting there going, hey, look at me.
Oh, I do.
You have money to get rid of me. Do it. So
yeah, but if you wait and spend the 10,000 gold to get the 20,000 gold house, yes, you're gonna have that quest sitting in your queue, but you don't really get the benefit from the house until you get near max level anyway.
What's the benefit of having, or the difference between a $5,000 and $20,000 house?
It's just the size and the number. You can get things called trophies to put in your house that will give you boosts while you're out in the world doing things. So if you've got a skinning trophy in your house, then it may give you increased yield when you skin. You may get more, or it may give you increased speed when you're skinning, things like that. But you can't get those trophies and make those trophies until much later in the game. So there's no real benefit to buying that first house unless you just want to have a house. So I'd say you're much better off to wait until later in the game, save up your gold, and then buy a nice big expensive house. And it gives you more room to put decorations and things in, and you get a decoration score and stuff like that based on what you have in the house. So
okay. All right. Well, I guess that's it for this week. And Reaper, nothing.
No, Keith keeps taking all my tips and stuff.
Shame. Shame, Reaper.
All right, well, I guess we'll see y'all later, and until next week, have fun playing the game.
Later, guys.
I still don't have a catchphrase. See you next time.
If you would like to reach the show, you can email us at mmonoobspodcast@gmail.com.